Out with its $4.1 trillion spending proposal. The plan seeks to balance the budget in 10 years, has almost $3.6 trillion in cuts to programs, including Medicaid, food stamps, and Social Security benefits.
We are not kicking anybody off of any program who really needs it. We have plenty of money in this country to take care of the people who need help.
Okay, I'm going to ask my panel to address that. We got enough money in the budget to take care of the people who really need help. Harry Stein is Director for Fiscal Policy at the Center for American Progress. You heard from Harry a little earlier. Is it Karen or Karan?
Karen.
Karen Gramont. Okay, Director of Healthy Eating at Martha's Table. Rosie Allen Herring, President, CEO of United Way of the National Capital Area. Your response to these numbers, this budget, and we've got enough money in that budget to take care of the people who need it. What do you think?
I mean, I would just start by saying I think we already have real problems right now. We look at DC, we've got 1 in 4 children in DC alone who are food insecure. So we have an incredibly strong economy here, and we already have problems. So any cuts to any of those vital services will just even more impact the families that need it most and that are depending on it to lift up.
You've got a lot of agencies, a lot of nonprofits.
Absolutely, and we hear it. We've heard it basically all year. When you look at what's being proposed, it is absolutely detrimental, not only to the safety net for those families that need it already, but it's going to be exacerbated by even more families now being in need. When you look at what they're proposing, when you look at what's out there in terms of the plan, it literally is nothing is untouched. And so when you look at everything from food insecurity, as Karen has shared, when you look at what's happening with affordable housing, when you look at what's happening with our veterans, when you look at what's happening with health care, and for us at United Way of the National Capital Area, our job is to build the capacity of the nonprofit sector in this region. And while we do have great largesse in this region, there is great need. And so we have an opportunity here to really and truly band our voices, to be collaborative, to talk about what that impact is, and it will be absolutely detrimental.
Well, let me ask you a numbers question here. You know, there isn't a large program out there that can't be trimmed, a little bit, a little savings here or there, a little tightening up of the management. That's not even close to what we're talking about here. And the administration isn't even pretending that that's what we're talking about. We're wiping out some programs. We're reducing in big numbers what we're doing here.
Right. There's a real conversation to have about how can we do this better? How can we better accomplish goals? How can we spend money more efficiently? That's not what this is. This is just saying, well, we don't like the program, so let's get rid of it, or let's cut it in half. In the case of Medicaid, by the way, by the end of the budget window, gets cut fully in half in 10 years. And I think that's fundamentally what's going on here with this budget. Is they're just saying, you know what, we don't want to support people anymore. We don't want to try to create jobs. And what it really is going to make worse is we've talked about the trends locally and people that are struggling. We've had skyrocketing income inequality, and at the same time that you have all these programs being taken away that maintain basic living standards, healthcare, housing, food. This budget has huge cuts for the wealthiest people and for big corporations. It's only going to make income inequality far worse than it already is today.
Try this. Your side lost the election, okay? This is how Republicans govern, okay? Deal with it.
So here's the thing. Donald Trump ran as a different kind of Republican. He promised, I'm not going to cut Social Security. He promised, I'm not going to cut Medicaid. He said that. And he's supported a legislation for health care that makes huge cuts to Medicaid. His budget actually goes even further beyond those cuts that are in the House health care bill. And then on Social Security, he breaks that promise. He cuts Social Security for people with disabilities. And the White House says, well, that's not really Social Security. It absolutely is Social Security. You pay for it with your payroll taxes just like everyone else. So Trump is breaking the promises that he made when he ran.
Well, what do you say about, the working poor, the unemployed who were counting on the jobs from the Trump administration? And in fact, that's what they were asking for. They weren't asking that affordable health care be cut and that pre-existing conditions, be eliminated and not taken care of. What do you say to those people now? What do they do now?
Well, I think a lot of people that voted for Trump expected that he would be investing in policies to create jobs. And that's not forthcoming either. We still just have empty promises on infrastructure, that this budget basically is still supporting a plan that would do more to just line the pockets of investors for private infrastructure projects. He cuts existing infrastructure programs quite a lot. And I think we absolutely need an economy that creates good jobs for everyone. Yeah. And we need to focus on communities that are left behind, and both geographically and in other senses. But that's not what this budget does.
What happens in these communities, you know, where a disproportionate number of the people are dependent upon government for a shot, an opportunity, if only temporary? What happens in these communities? And they're large communities out here. They're not just in urban areas.
Absolutely.
Also, but what happens now if these cuts or anything close to these cuts go through?
Well, I mean, I can tell you right now at Martha's table, we're already seeing a lot of the impact of some of this. So we very much believe that every child deserves their brightest future. And we believe a critical part of that is access to food, and not just any food, but healthy food. We've looked at access to our emergency food services over the last few months, and even this month alone, the need has grown by 20%. So even though SNAP cuts haven't yet taken effect, and that may be a year or a few years down the road, just the conversation and the anxiety and the fear that it could happen is already, we're seeing it every single day already with families that don't know where the next meal is going to come from tomorrow, and are already living with more anxiety and stress.
What are you hearing from your agencies?
Well,
what
we're hearing basically the same thing as what Karen is sharing. So many of our agencies are already dealing with very strained budgets. When we look at what happens, 50% of most of our nonprofits get their biggest influx of cash in the last quarter of the year. It's during the season of giving. It's during the Christmas holidays. It's those that are looking for that tax deduction. And so now, this time of year, they're already struggling. And so when you look at just impending what could happen, we saw this 3 years ago with the sequestration. And that back on the table now to potentially happen. And at United Way, what we've sought to do in terms of building those nonprofits and the work that they have to do and serving the families that they already serve and those that are potentially going to come, we've embarked on our 5th year of what we call Do More 24. It's our season of giving. It's our one-day, 24-hour day of giving, and it's June 8th of this year. And so we're going to be asking now the citizens of this region to now give locally. We know that we've talked a lot about what's happening nationally, but we're going to ask you now to serve the local economy as well.
All right, let's continue this conversation. Let's go to top